Thank you, Freak. Yeah, bringing one game back, again, showing that they're not just going to roll over and die there. So good on Fusion for that. But as they said, Dignitas was in control of that game. Gamsu was insanely fed on Hecarim, hit that 6-item threshold so early, but they did not capitalize on the fact that he hit that 6 items so quickly, and everyone started to catch up.
Yeah, there was a lot of things about this game that stuck out to me. The fact that Chunky Fresh is like 3 items, 40 minutes in the game, still doing a ton of damage on that Rumble, even though they had banned the Rumble previously. So just get him on that champion. He's still relevant. And the thing that really stuck out to me was the team fights from Fusion, because they actually could have won a lot of earlier team fights if Nintendo had landed his ultimate on multiple people. He kind of whiffed a whole bunch. There's one in the Baron pit, one in the mid lane, and one around those fights in the mid lane again. So the fact that they take the fights where he does actually land an ultimate on multiple people, that's the turning point there. So the fact that Dignitas got that huge lead was off of a lot of Fusion misplays, in my opinion.
That's actually a very good point. Fusion was in the lead in the early stages of the game. Through the mid game, they had some misplays and fights, a fair number of missed Sejuani ults. I feel like those Sejuani ults were too targeted at one individual. Right?
Yeah.
It was an attempt to snipe one person as opposed to taking, the approach of like, let me throw it out, get that slow on multiple people. It's at least more effective.
I think that's what he ended up doing in the end. He's like, okay, I just need to peel for Nien, and then we'll win the team fight off of that. So using it more for a peeling tool, the tank wall instead of the backline, is the easier way to execute things, and it does pay off in this team.
Now, Jat mentioned picks and bans a little bit, saying, pointing out the Alistair in that first rotation for Dignitas. I do agree, it seems a little odd to me. However, with those targeted bans at Kiwi Kid, Annie, and Kennen, it kind of points to, is his champion pool deep enough? Why is there such a high priority on Alistair here in this game?
I think, go ahead.
I'm unsure about that too. I mean, maybe he only plays 3 champions, but my guess is that Alistar is a good pick. Even though it's not too good into Janet, but you do have some kill pressure. And the biggest thing this game for their bot lane was that they actually were losing 2v2. Dignitas was behind early on. They had the choice of AD, but they picked one that wasn't the greatest into the Sivir. And we saw this game compared to the 2 previous games where Core JJ didn't have much pressure. He wasn't winning the lane, which he was winning on Kalista, he was winning on the Sivir matchup, and this time he's losing. So that's something that Dignitas needs to keep in mind, because if Core JJ and Kiwi Kid are winning the bot lane, the game is a lot easier for them.
Yeah, it's a weird pivot that I'm not 100% sure about, but Fusion taking the Sejuani first, I think, was the right move, because they took Sivir first, which allows Kalista counterpick. If you take Sejuani first, if they take Sivir in response, you take Kalista. So then you have a good lane matchup, and then you have Sejuani on your team as well. So they actually got both things because they picked the right one first, whereas last game they picked Sivir.
What's odd, though, is that they still chose the Sivir before the AD carry was picked up on Dignitas' side. So there was the opportunity to have the exact same 2v2 matchup as the previous game, and Dignitas opted out of that. So, again, all of this is to say that Jat's point of picks and bans, probably looking for some things to switch up here for Dignitas, as they're going to be yet again on the red side, and with the importance of that 2v2 in the bot lane, might put some priority on making sure they get the counter pick there and move away from counter picks in the mid lane. But I do have to say, now moving on to the mid lane, we had Zed versus Ahri, so we kind of moved away from that Ziggs, Lulu, the farm, supporty, AoE type champions onto the assassin champions. And we saw plays out of both of them, but I wasn't overwhelmed by the play on either side. Huhi a couple times overextending, a little bit too confident in his Zed split push play, kind of bit him, a few times.
It's a habit and a tendency that he's had ever since expansion. I first saw him, where he's trying to split push. Sometimes they 1-3-1, and it's like, whoa, the team fight's starting. We don't have our main assassin to take care of their AD carry. So I think it's a big problem, and he doesn't like to group up for the team fights near the mid game. And when he's playing LeBlanc and Ahri, he can kind of get away with it because he has so many escapes. On Zed, he doesn't have as much of a luxury to do that, so that's the more punishable champion for him. But his LeBlanc keeps getting banned for this reason.
All right, the next thing I want to talk about is Dignitas and the Baron here, right? Because Dignitas has a long history with the Baron, but this gaming special, it did not go well at all. And I feel like this, the way it played out was perfectly avoidable, rather.
They were playing the Baron as if they had Kalista. They were thinking, okay, let's start the Baron. We can do it. I mean, but the bigger thing I would say is that they aren't even clearing the wards on the Baron. That's such a big deal. They had one pink ward on a team of 5 people. Come on, like you can each get a pink ward. That's 5 pink wards, guys. So if you guys each have a pink ward, you can pink ward everything, and you can't just walk into Baron for free. But they let Fusion have a ward on Baron, saw what they're doing, went on them, got engaged on, lost the Baron, lost the game. It's just, that's not how you play Baron. You need some more vision. You need to make sure they don't have vision either.
Yeah, they had sweepers up too, which was just really confusing because they started, then they swept it, and it was like, oh, okay, I guess we're seeing now, which is really kind of just, you do the steps 1, 2, and 3. You don't go 1, 3, and 2.
Yeah. No, vision play actually was a pretty big factor in this game, and we've ignored it a little bit in the previous games. But yeah, again here, moving into that Baron, they had 2 wards down to Fusion's 6 or 7, and it was a pretty huge discrepancy there, which is surprising to see from the LCS team, right? When you talk about categorizing differences between LCS teams and challenger teams, I think a lot of what people would go to is vision control and objective play. And here, Dignitas was not illustrating a higher level of expertise around those objectives.
That's actually what happens when you have a new jungler and a relatively new support, is because both don't prioritize vision as highly as they're supposed to, and they're not good enough working together to build up that synergy. And that's something that is an issue, and you see both these teams are kind of playing like a challenger team in terms of vision. Both are lacking a lot of vision. Both are kind of going for riskier plays, and that's the big glaring error that Dignitas has been making throughout this whole season. And Fusion, I mean, they're a challenger team, so it's kind of expected.
Right.
Yeah. In their defense, though, when you're 6-item Hecarim, you don't have room for wards, so you can't even get a pink ward.
You could get the upgraded green trinket. You have 2. I do want to jump into our replay. We're going to go to that final Baron fight there that sealed the deal and got Fusion back into the game and ultimately the win. So we're going to pull that up on your screens right now. Irene, I'm going to let you take this one.
So this is actually the very confusing fight for me because they have the Hecarim in the base, and he starts his TP to home guard immediately in, and his target actually gets out of the pit before he's able to nail him down, and Nintendude holds his Sejuani ultimate until the back line and front line are kind of merged together. So as we roll this clip out, you're going to see how it gets executed. There's about 4,000 HP on it before Zingy jumps in, so it's out of kill range, and they immediately peel off, and they form the line. Gamsu goes in, he's like, oh, that's a juicy hoo-hee, immediately out, and then the Rumble ulti across, they get knocked up, but Core JJ and Shifter aren't there yet, and Nintendude stuns both of them, so the follow-up damage is not there to continue. And it's all about peeling for Nien. He gets exhausted, but then the damage dealers have to escape, and Core JJ takes that crit right as the exhaust wears off. So Nien is able to have great positioning during this fight due to the frontline tankiness of Nintendude and the fact that he held his ultimate for the backline.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty, that shows this how a Sejuani can turn a fight, and if that had happened earlier in the game, perhaps Fusion would have kind of rolled through that game a lot quicker.
And it's funny too because he was using it as a counter-engage tool, which you should use against this type of team because they're going to come into you with the Hecarim, right? He's going to run into your face. The R is going to try to run into you. He was overextending for too early in the game.
Yeah, even Lucian too wants to kind of get in for those double taps and some burst damage. Well, Team Fusion have kept the series alive with that win and will try to keep the momentum on their side in Game 4 versus Team Dignitas. Stay with us.